I'm Duncan Brown. I'm the Vice President for Enterprise Research at IDC. We have an esteemed panel with us today, so let me start by introducing them. On the top row, left to right, Srini is the co-founder of Amagi, one of the fastest growing cloud broadcast companies in the world. He's a tech entrepreneur with 2 decades of experience in building innovative products and solutions and taking them to global markets. At Amagi, Srini heads Americas region, responsible for revenue growth, customer engagement, and regional operations. Then we have Shalom Carmel. He's a CIO of GlobalDots, the world's largest value-added reseller of cloud performance, content delivery, and security technologies. Customers include Lufthansa, Bosch, and Benetton, and they trust GlobalDots to secure and deliver their digital assets to worldwide audiences. Christophe Nicolas is the group CIO for the Kudelski group. Kudelski is a Swiss company and world leader in media and entertainment security solutions, things like pay TV, internet streaming, digital media delivery, and so on. Also in cybersecurity, Internet of Things security, and public access solutions. Prior to taking over the group CIO role, Christophe was the founder of Kudelski Security, the cybersecurity division of the group. On the bottom row, we have Dhaval Ponda. Dhaval is the global head of media and entertainment services at Tata Communications. He was part of the founding media team at the company. Customers including MotoGP, the European Tour, and Sky. And Dhaval has been instrumental in establishing Tata Communications as a leader in increasingly digital, cloud-powered, and IP-enabled media and entertainment industry. And last but certainly not least, we have Andang Doi. He's the CIO for World Athletics, which is the world governing body for athletics, and has a background in digital marketing and media research, and has joined World Athletics in 2017 to help with digital transformation. So no small job there. So that's the panel. Thank you for the panel for joining us today. I want to start today by just exploring how we at IDC see the world of enterprise technology and the future of enterprise technology. So it's been a really interesting time, hasn't it, the last 8 months or so. I've just moved to the next slide. This is a capture from a tweet, and obviously a joke: who's leading your digital transformation in your company, the CEO, the CTO, or COVID-19? Very funny. Do you know what? The real answer is C, isn't it? Certainly over the last 8 or 9 months or so, the real answer is C, that everyone's digital transformation program has been altered dramatically by COVID-19. Moving to the next slide, just to put some numbers on this, the market has seen profound changes over the last 8 months. And if we click forward to the actual numbers, these are the estimated GDP decreases for 2020. So this region that we're in Western Europe, and in fact the numbers are very similar in other territories around the world. You know, these are unprecedented times. I mean, normally, you know, in a bad year, you might see 1 to 2% decline. In a really, really bad year, and we're seeing, you know, double-digit decreases in many cases. So, you know, economies around the world are having a real tough time. Moving to the next slide, what does that actually mean for individual companies? So we have continually surveyed the European audience on a bi-weekly basis since March to understand the sentiment analysis and to try to understand how companies are being impacted. And roughly 3/4, it varies from sample to sample, but roughly 3/4 of organizations, so on the slide 73%, believe that their company revenue will decline as a result of COVID-19 this year. And I think that will resonate with many organizations. But if you move to the next click, we then ask, what's the impact on your IT spend? And although by and large it is down, it's not nearly as far down as revenue is expected to be. So this disparity really points to the fact that organizations are sustaining their level of IT spend above the level of expected revenue decline. In other words, what we think is that technology appears to be part of the solution. The shape of that technology is, well, that's what we're going to be discussing later in this conversation. So the nature of technology changes, but the fact that technology itself is part of the solution is a key point that listeners need to take away. What does this look like from a vertical market? So we've done some interesting analysis plotting the impact of COVID, if we move to the next slide, on individual industries, and then plotted them also in terms of their overall maturity in digital technologies. So right to left, that's the span of degree of impact from COVID, and top to bottom is how innovative these industries tend to be. And media and entertainment was also, media segment is bang in the middle on the next click. And a lot of the entertainment services fall into something we call personal and consumer services. So things like going to watch a football match or watching athletics, for example, that would be in personal and consumer services. So a bit of a mixed picture. So media in the middle, personal consumer services impacted quite severely. No one can go to see a sporting event at the moment. So quite a mixed picture there. And actually within media, again, it's also quite mixed. You know, some of the more traditional media, print media, for example, really severely hit, where some of the digital media is actually doing rather well, because we are now at home, and sometimes the only entertainment we can consume is digital media broadcasts to the home. So quite a mixed picture, and we'll be digging into what that means for individual companies in the conversation. So what happens now? So on the next slide, IDC has developed a 5-step road to recovery. So organizations start in crisis mode, and this is basically survival mode. You actually work your way through the first part of the crisis, then going into slowdown, where the focus is really on cost optimization, moving into a recessionary phase where the focus is really on business resilience, so battening down the hatches and trying to see through the downturn, and then eventually a return to growth and emerging into the next normal, whatever that looks like. And actually, we're using this term future enterprise to describe what this next normal will look like. So that's going to be the focus of the discussion. Where are companies now? So we ask on the next click, we ask our organizations where they think they are on the on this journey. So the next click will bring up these percentages. Yeah, one more click. So what we're seeing is that in the moment, so the last survey that we did in August, still the balance of companies really in this these first three stages. But you'll see there's a 36%, so more than a third of organizations in the cost optimization phase, and a smattering kind of moving through the wave. Just contrast that with where companies were in June, where the bulk was in that that business continuity, that's still in that crisis phase. So there is some sense that companies are moving, albeit slowly, through this journey. And but it will take some time before the majority of companies return to growth. So really, the emphasis on technology is how do we flatten this curve? How do we minimize the impact of COVID and lessen the recession for individual companies? And what target investments and strategic investments can we be making in order to drive that return to growth? Specifically for the media and entertainment sector, we think there are three big focus areas. So moving on to the next slide, we think the industry will focus on driving hyper-personalized content and delivery. They will leverage new multi-platform approaches and new revenue models and develop a long-term hybrid workforce strategy. Let's drill down into each of those in a little bit more detail. So in terms of driving hyper-personalized content and delivery strategy, we're really looking at how consumers' behavior has changed over the last 8 or 9 months, and how organizations can then create a more personalized and intimate experience while protecting customer personal data and privacy. And then looking at how can they leverage data-driven solutions to improve relationships with customers. So really an emphasis on an intimate relationship with customers and consumers. In order to leverage new multi-platform approaches, we really need to be asking what capabilities do CIOs need to operate as a digital platform. So this idea of having a digital-based platform is core to the future enterprise. And what are the new monetization opportunities from partner ecosystems? Is it subscription? Is it advertising? Is it in-play betting? And you know, so some of these ecosystem questions are really, really important now, and much more important than they have been to date. And in terms of the hybrid workforce strategy, it's really looking at do they have the right technologies, policies, processes in place to support this hybrid workplace. We've all been working at home more or less for the last 8 months. Will we go back to the office? Well, there's a big question mark over there. I think most organizations are accepting now that employees are trustworthy and can work very effectively, sometimes more effectively, when they're working at home. But you know, there is the added benefit in the office of you know, coming together in teams and communities. And so how do you get that balance? So this idea of a hybrid workplace is really important moving forward. So with that, thank you, and I think it's time to get into the panel discussion. So thanks to the panel for joining us today. Let's bring the panel in and let's get right to the key issue of the moment, which is how companies are adapting to survive. So media and entertainment in the age of COVID, what does that look like? So Anne, why don't I come to you first? How do you think CIOs in the media and entertainment sector have adapted to face the tough challenges and realities of COVID-19? How have they responded in the face of changing business imperatives and models? What do you think?
Well, we had to respond. There was no choice. So it was not an option to find ways of continuing to operate. So I think I would divide that into 2 parts, which is, you know, one was very short term, very tactical, and there were also some changes which you know, which were more about the model and the strategy, which is actually leading to the future enterprise you were suggesting in your slide. So tactically, what we had to do for the events we're organizing is find ways of producing remotely. You know, how can we send fewer people on site because travel was an issue. We have, you know, World Athletics. The people working for us, the athletes, are coming from you know, up to 200 countries. So this is very complex. That was very complex for us. So TV experience, you know, how can you operate that remotely? Things as simple as, you know, journalists not being able to travel. So how can we interview athletes? So we organized what we called virtual mix zones. So that was quite a premiere as well in the industry, with people being used to do everything on site and speak to the athletes directly. Something which was very tactical as well is, you know, how do you organize what I call COVID workflow? You know, who needs to be tested? I mean, you saw a glimpse of that. You know, everyone is facing that, whether it's golf, Formula One, whatever. How do you create those bubbles? How do you ensure that people coming on site are vetted the right way? How do you ensure that it stays that way through the event? And a lot of that is data driven. So how do you organize your accreditation systems, your validation systems to make that possible? And you need to do that, you know, overnight almost. So you know, the CIOs in the sport industry had to react very quickly, and I mean, at least for the CIOs I'm speaking to, you know, in the major sports, whether it's golf, Formula One, and other major sports. I mean, I know that it was a big headache, but everyone was able to deliver. From a more, I would say, we've done that during the crisis, but it will leave an imprint in the things we will be doing going forward. Is, you know, changing the way we engage with our fans, or possibly accelerating that. In the past, we were relying a lot on podcasters to have that relationship with fans, but what is happening when there's no events? For a period of time, you know, things are resuming now, but it's still slow. But for a period of time, we had no events, no worldwide competition. So what do? So what type of formats you can come up with, whether it is athletes led content, whether it is mining content, our content library, what digital channels we can use, because there's no TV experience, to get that out to the fans. How can we understand that this is successful? So we, in terms of format, for example, we organized something called the Garden Clash, which was organized very quickly and which was very successful. Is basically you had, you know, world athletes jumping pole vault in their garden and competing between each other remotely in their own garden. And first, a lot of people, that was quite enjoyable, because a lot of fans didn't imagine that those top athletes have what it takes to jump in their garden, because it's quite a handful. I'm sure that their wives are not happy about the setup there. But that was organized very successfully in different locations in the world. We've done that several times for top athletes, male and female, and different and different disciplines, and the number of views was actually very comforting. And even now, with fewer TV events, the audience figures are higher actually. So we are quite pleased with what we have been able to do, you know, in new formats, but also with televised events as well. Recently, being a bit inventive, like creating some virtual crowds. You know, some have seen that for football, but we had that also for athletics, where we try to produce some noise in the stadium, so people don't feel that they. And in our case, in some sport they added that post-production. In our case, we did that for some of the competition as part of the event, which was better for the athletes, I must say, and for the public, because we're still able to have something like 5,000 people in the stadium. But,
that's fascinating. Yeah, great, brilliant. Thank you very much. And I love the examples, particularly the pole vaulting in the garden. I now can't get that image out of my head. Christophe, what has the impact been on Kudelski, short and long term? Hello, Christophe.
Possibly he needs to unmute.
Yeah,
possibly.
That's the typical.
There we go. I knew that would happen.
Sorry for that. No, I was just starting that we have a various range of business unit, and we start, and I think Anne's comments resonated very well with us because we have a public access with Ski Data providing access to stadium. And as you can imagine, stadium were kind of empty those days. So we had to reinvent ourselves, as Anne mentioned, to think about the health and safety of all the few people that needs to show up. And definitely all of our customer in media then needs those kind of events or sports contents. And the good news in that ecosystem is that the media and entertainment has been disrupted for quite some time. We were not waiting for COVID to see the Netflix of those world and the other way to consume and to broadcast content. So most of our customers were kind of ready or already in the journey to transform themselves. So that has speed up that. So the media and security aspects, so our digital TV business unit with more than 450 million end user watching content have had to adapt. And we see adaptation in technology. We see adaptation in also type of content. The esports of those world, having Travis Scott's doing a live concert on Fortnite. So you see a lot of new type of events to quote unquote entertain people at home. Not surprisingly, it seems that also cooking class have been high on the list. People are now learning how to cook at home, or at least millennial and Generation Z are now catching up on that. And I think to comment on the two other business units, we are in cybersecurity and Internet of Things. That's the more the bad and the ugly of that transformation. So if you were not yet ready for a pure cloud play when it comes to security, you have now an expansion of your security perimeter, and you do have a few new challenges supporting your customer and colleagues at home.
Interesting. Let me bring in Dhaval and Srini here. Have you seen any new solutions that have had their adoption accelerated in the media and entertainment sector by the crisis? Let's come to you, Dhaval, first.
Sure thing. Thank you, Duncan. And good morning, good evening to everyone on the panel and the listeners as well. I think echoing what Anne and Christophe have mentioned, this has been an unprecedented time. And I think if we look at top three problems for the industry, the first and foremost is a safe restart of events. Having to send fewer people, putting bio bubbles in place for athletes, for the production crew, and the entire setup. It takes a lot of effort to sort of televise a sort of a tier 1 event in 4K and distribute that to hundreds of millions of households globally. So the first has been around restart. Second has been around what is the new normal. And there are a few things that have changed in this new normal, where people have gotten used to different forms of content. As Christophe mentioned, esports and virtual sports have become sort of the new normal. So organizations and federations and broadcasters are having to adapt to that because it not only gives them additional monetization and revenue streams, it is effectively changing how your sport will be consumed from now on. And because these habits are quite deeply ingrained and they are here to stay. And the final point is around distributed workflows that have gone into cloud, mainly driven by people working from home, which means that you have to provide secure access to the same applications through cloud. You have to manage every single sort of cybersecurity threat, not only to your data, but also for your content. So addressing these three problems, some of the solutions that we have not only developed during the time of COVID, but also deployed, would be the first and foremost is around safe remote production. So remote production, as it's called in Europe, or REMI as it's called in the Americas, is basically allowing federations and producers to safely produce events from hundreds and thousands of miles away. So many of our customers were used to sending about 100, 200 people to a site for producing a tier 1 event. For example, MotoGP production in Australia would have hundreds of people around it. Now, gone are the days where you can ship 200, 300 people for 200 days in a year. How do you do that production with a crew of 40? So we are doing that with remote production. That is number one. Second is around virtualization of this entire setup. I mean, anyone who's seen production, either for sports, news, or entertainment, is used to looking at tons of hardware on site, a massive van, and if you move that to a central location, then again you have tons of hardware at that central location as well. However, this is going through a fundamental shift. This is going to the cloud, and what it means is that a lot of these applications will be available as a service. And that is a very fundamental change. I think it is going to change the way the media industry is structured and how people are making money and how people are sort of monetizing their products. So that is number two, around virtualization, which is fundamental, and it is very important to sort of adapt to that, because the industry has already moved on. It's not a question of if, it is a question of how fast can you change and move along with it. And finally, the third aspect is around the workforce and all the participants on the industry, including all of us who are working from home right now, joining this call. I think every single skill set will now sort of be molded in a work from home environment, and what that means is providing secure access to the applications, ensuring that the employee well-being is also sort of delivered in a better way than you would have had in an office environment, because in an office environment you would have the larger sort of machinery and the engine of an organization at play. Now you're having to capillarize that motion, and you're having to reach out to your sort of team members, colleagues globally around that. So yeah, Duncan, these are some of the solutions that we are looking at from an innovation standpoint, and we have delivered that. One example I would like to take is for a global motorsport federation that we delivered in a virtual racing format, where the same event that used to take place at, let's say, a Grand Prix location was done remotely on a gaming console, where the same track was superimposed. So all the drivers were in their homes, sort of racing on a console, and it looked better than the same event. And we thought maybe people are going to sort of look at this and maybe come back, and sort of the viewership is going to be 30-40% of what you would have in a normal event. The viewership and the engagement was actually more than 150% of what that event would take place, and they kept coming back. So what this shows is that the audience has gotten used to a new form of content consumption and also engagement for the industry going forward.
Interesting. It's fascinating stuff, and I love the example of the digital event actually being better than the real life event. Srini, let me come to you. Are you seeing new solutions having their adoption accelerated?
Absolutely, Duncan. As you rightly pointed out at the start of the discussion, clearly COVID-19 is driving the digital transformation more than anything else, more than anybody else in the company. So we're seeing a whole bunch of innovations, right? I mean, one is business model innovations that, obviously the studios and the media entertainment companies are going through to survive and grow in this phase of business. Two is the technology innovation on how can I optimize, how can I, support those business models. And three, process and people innovations. I'll give you a few examples. Obviously, on the business model innovation, I mean, one of the big things, for example, some of these studios that we work with, they really weren't producing new movies. Even if they had movies produced, they didn't really have a way to release them. So how do I actually, survive and monetize my content in this new phase? A lot of them actually started becoming, B2C companies from B2B. They've never had, direct-to-consumer offerings. Suddenly, we are starting to see some of these companies, leveraging distribution platforms like, these free ad-supported TV platforms. For example, in the US, we have seen a number of these studios launching linear 24/7 channels on OTT, right? Leveraging their library content, the archives to be able to build up one, consumer engagement, and two, monetize what they had already in the library much better. Obviously, we have seen newer innovations like PVOD, Premium VOD, where I actually do theatrical releases, but directly to consumer on an OTT platform. That's happening in a big way. So clearly there are a number of business model innovations that we are starting to see, one. Two, on the technology side, clearly a lot of technology adoption is happening to support these business models as well as to optimize what they already had. Clearly, having physical data center based, physical operations is really not a choice today. I mean, we have had emergency calls from our customers. We run cloud infrastructure based, software broadcast operations for our customers, saying that, I need to have a plan in a week. If somebody falls sick or somebody is infected within the facility and I have to shut down the facility for 48 hours, how do I actually, manage to run my, television operations continuously, right? So how do I, have a backup from a cloud perspective to be able to support? So clearly movement to the cloud has accelerated. To echo what Dhaval was mentioning, live production on the cloud is really a thing, right? So earlier it was always based on, physical production, subsequently remote production, but still, physical hardware data center based operations. Now everything can they be virtualized? And pretty much every one of our live sports, live news customers are looking at live production on the cloud. That's really become a mandatory requirement. We are also starting to see a lot more of AI and ML, both from a capability to be able to, do stuff remotely, do stuff from a cost optimal perspective. So whether it's, metadata extraction, addition of, closed captions, subtitles, voiceovers, a whole bunch of things that was traditionally done in a manual way. People are looking at AI ML in a big way. Three, on the people side, clearly this also opened up a lot of gaps. What if my leadership falls sick? What if, some of the key employees fall sick? How do I have backups? So people are also looking at, we have one of our customers where they had HR put in software as part of the check-in in the morning. They actually come in and say how their health is. If there is any issue, they had somebody, HR immediately calling in saying, are you okay? Is there something else that we need? So providing a much larger support system or support backbone, not just from a, software technology or an operations perspective, but also from a health perspective, kind of become a unified operation, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good, very interesting, good examples there. Shalom, let's come to you. I'm interested to see whether you've seen any important lessons that CIOs in the media and entertainment sector can learn from each other and deploy as we move into the new war, into the new normal. What are the key lessons you think that we've learned?
Well, I think that the most important lesson that we've learned is that change is a constant, first of all, okay?
Yeah.
So, yes, I mean, COVID came and is probably here to stay. And suddenly you find that your workforce is going to work remotely from their home offices. And it's probably also going to stay. I mean, maybe not at the scale that we have it today, but, if we thought previously that people must be at the office to be productive, then suddenly we find that this is not necessarily true, and that people are productive even when working from remote locations in the home offices. So I think that this is the most important key lesson to take from this event. And I would also say that one of the important things that CIOs can learn from each other is to let's say, to compare notes. I mean, we've been talking really on a high level on how the events influence our enterprises, but I think it might be a very good idea for you as the IDC, maybe for future sessions, to actually go and take a look at all kinds of new technologies, possibly to break them down and see what's the use case for, I don't know, zero trust networks and SASE and cloud cost optimization and so on and so on, because there's a lot of new technology out there and nobody can by themselves become experts and make the best decisions on their own.
Yeah, we're certainly doing that, and we might actually get onto that discussion later on in this conversation. Let's move on to look at the technology that's actually going to drive tomorrow's media and entertainment landscape. And as we look ahead to a new era of transformation and rejuvenation, we hope, what kinds of use cases are you looking to support through innovation?
So one of the use case we have is around what we call athletes tracking. So we are trying to modernize the athletics as a product and make it more entertaining on different aspects. And athletics is very data-rich sport, actually, when you think about it. We are collecting 2 million results a year, and for 200,000 athletes at the elite level, just at the elite level. But so far, people have been focused on the main final performance of an athlete. And in the past, if you wanted to understand how Usain Bolt, for example, was able to run that fast, that would be something you do offline. For example, people have commented, but after studying how Usain Bolt was running, that he was spending half of his time off the ground, actually, not touching the ground. But those things there were insight which was created after the event, looking at with very old-fashioned way of studying biomechanics. So now what you can do, thanks to cloud computing, thanks to image recognition, and fast computing as well. So those things can be created real time now. So it's giving us the opportunity to create insights on the fly, basically, and give commentators and fans new ways of looking at the sport, and being able to, okay, what was the posture of the athletes, how that person was able to succeed to jump, improve 6 meters, for example, which was achieved recently in one of the events by Duplantis. And what was his approach speed, what was his technique, and that's something we can share with the public near real time now. So we are working on those cutting edge technologies to add to make our sport more entertaining for different audiences. One of the examples.
Yeah, and much more rich experience as well. Dhaval, I think you've got some comments that you'd like to share as well on use cases. Dhaval, you on mute?
Absolutely. So, in terms of looking at the future, I think there are two very significant impact driven outcomes that we are going to sort of have to look at. The first one is the type of content, and it is very significant because I think the entire sporting industry and the media industry, as well as the general entertainment industry, has gone through a significant shift in terms of viewership patterns and behavior. So that will mean fundamentally how you look at content is going to be entirely different. If you look at what Netflix is doing for general entertainment and the way they are sort of driving their content strategy globally, they are going through sort of an international first, sort of a lowest common denominator across cultures and across languages, which is immense. I think a little bit of that is going to happen in the world of sports, in the world of news as well. So, and what that means is you not only have a different content strategy, but you also have different tools in order to produce it differently. Now, if you have, let's say, an NBA match in LA, and if you want to give a commentary in Spanish for the Mexican audience, you don't need to have that person physically in LA. You can have a distributed workforce providing you localized commentary with local nuances, sitting wherever they are. And this is possible now. So this not only gives you, let's say, economies of scale and saves you money, but if you look at it, your talent pool is now the whole world. You could be providing localized feeds in South Korea with a local Korean nuance as well. And things like that open up, A, your revenue potential, B, your talent pool, which is immense, and also gives you significantly further legs in order to expand sort of your audience base. I think that is number one. Secondly, going to the future, I think the more we move into a virtualized environment, what will happen is the viewing experience from an audience standpoint is going to establish a very high bar in terms of what do they expect. Today, they already expect that once they press play, the video should play. And if there is any direct-to-consumer video platform out there that struggles with that, immediately gets sort of relegated to a second, third choice. Going forward, there will be significantly other aspects at play as well. Local language tracks, engagement with social media. We had Amazon Prime Video doing a brilliant sort of experience for audience last year for Boxing Day Premier League matches, where they were all sort of interacting with each other and exchanging stats, and all of that was in real-time environment. So I think going forward, embracing cloud is going to sort of give you capabilities which will have a direct impact on your audience experience, which is important because until now, virtualization was pretty much a CTO, CIO's territory, and they were having to basically call out, why am I going on a cloud strategy? And the answer was better cost structure and a better roadmap. But now they would be in a position to go back to their boards and say, this is giving me an entirely different audience engagement. And the same person is now spending 40% more time on our platform because of this experience. And hence, either you have a better subscription potential from that viewer or a better ad potential is something which is going to be very important going forward.
Yeah, you mentioned boards there. Srini, let me come to you. How do you think, how important do you think is the C-suite in supporting transformative innovations in the businesses that you work with?
Well, I think COVID especially has brought IT to front and center of the organization. What was once an enabling function is today become extremely critical in this whole remote working, remote environment that we are in. And we have had, and given the tough times that many of the media entertainment companies have been going through, the CFOs and the CEOs are getting very actively involved in terms of the transformation technologies that are actually happening. And we have had quite a few customers, surprisingly. I mean, in fact, some of the CIOs and CTOs mentioned to me that their business teams are actually directly going and talking to cloud vendors and technology vendors and trying to assess what's out there. Right. So potentially we are seeing much more active engagement from the C-suite, both in terms of identifying potentially transformative technologies and to drive adoption of those much more than ever. I think, that's the visibility of the IT org is significantly improved in the company.
Yeah, no, I agree. So it'd be interesting to see whether we can, as an industry, hang on to that influence and that front and center position that we have at the moment. Let me come to you, Shalom and Christophe as well. What do you think? What sorts of solutions will be used to shape new business models? I mean, I guess if the board is going to be engaged and continue to be engaged, they are going to be driven by business models. So I'm interested to understand what your views are on the kinds of solutions that will be used to shape these business models, or boost efficiency, maintain continuity, possibly improve collaboration in the media and entertainment sector. Shalom, let me come to you first.
Yeah, of course. So first, I think that what we see, a trend that we see that has been increased by the COVID plague is that more and more companies in the media and entertainment sector move out to cloud solution, to something as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, whatever. So first, it's a trend that we already see, but there's a problem with that, and because if the company, if the CIO is not involved in that, then what it does, it creates shadow IT operations. And this is, once some kind of production unit or IT or a business analyst decided what they need is, just get some service, take out the credit card and then put it on their expenses, then suddenly you may be in a problem. So I think one of the things that you need in order to survive and to shape to support the new business models and support going out and buying services is to better ways to manage those solutions, those shadow solutions, those SaaS platforms. So you need to manage your users, your security, your GDPR regulations, your privacy, and so on and so on. This is one thing that you must take into account and deal with it. Second is the question of expertise in certain cloud solutions. For example, if you now go to Amazon and or to Google or to pick your own favorite cloud provider, and you start using their built-in media solutions, for example, if you want to create media, you suddenly you will find yourself in a chaos in terms of costs. So you don't know, it's really hard to plan a budget when you really don't know what your costs are going to be, and what you need is a better cost control. So, and it takes expertise. So you can grow that expertise at home, or you can buy tools and technologies that can help you manage that zoo of cloud costs, which will grow in your backyard. I would also say that there's another technology that is right on the verge of disrupting business, and if you don't use it, you are going to lose out, and that's Kubernetes. So essentially, when cloud computing came out by Amazon, it leveled the field for small companies, essentially. So suddenly a small company had access to capabilities and capacities that, you needed large CapEx investments before that to achieve. But suddenly, with the advent of Kubernetes, the large companies suddenly have access to the same technologies that the fast startup use in order to grow. So I think that Kubernetes is going to be a major player in enterprise, and specifically in our sector, in M&E sector, and that's because you will need it to massively grow your business. If you need to grow, eventually it will reduce the time to market and improve your SLA. All we want to do is to boost the bottom line with this, and Kubernetes is definitely going to do that. And putting on also the head of the CIO for a moment, I think I also see a trend of what we call a Kubernetes off the shelf. So we all are also responsible sometimes for applications, enterprise applications that are being deployed on premise, not necessarily in the cloud. And I see a sort of a small trend, which I predict will be much more invasive, is that software vendors are going to package the delivery of their software as Kubernetes, as Helm charts. Essentially they will say, do you want to run my new ERP or my new CRM on premise? No problem. Here's how you do it with Kubernetes. So I think that getting some homegrown knowledge and possibly, using external experts to boost your company to do that is critical for the new company.
Fascinating, interesting. Christophe, let me come to you. Have you seen any new solutions driving new business models for Kudelski?
I think there is plenty of source of inspiration when it comes to new business model. If you look at esports and gaming, I think they have been very innovative in the way they monetize real-time live sports events. Or they're just looking at my kids being chatting on Discord while looking also on those aspects, and spending money on Twitch make it real there. I think moving forward, you need to think about those business models as hybrid business model and data-centric. Hybrid, I mean, we should not only think about live event in a stadium or something at the TV. I think, how do you merge those two? And we have both, I think, interaction and the user experience that can be matched, as well as when it comes to data-centric, you have data from the stadium, loyalty, information, and the way people really live that experience at a stadium or at a cinema. You need to, quote unquote, put that into the mix and really think about how to engage more with the user, no matter what is not in the stadium, but recreate some of the user experience or experiences looking at there. And I think I just want also to come back on the change management aspect. I think that Shalom mentioned before. I think we passed the stress test on the technology. I don't think we have passed the stress test on our customer or consumer, as well as on our employee. In any change management, if you have a rollout digital transformation plan, the technology is the easy part of the transformation, bringing training, making sure that people are aware of the transformation and the change is really the difficult part. And I think we need to put that into motions for also our business model. How do we train our consumer or customers to go into a virtual stadium? How do we train them to move and to cope with that continuous change moving forward? That will be an important aspect also of the game.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, as you say, training customers to use the new platforms is going to be a big challenge. A lot of this new technology depends on connectivity. I'm really interested to understand what kind of connectivity innovations will be important. Are we talking SD-WAN? Someone's already mentioned SASE, so essentially an integrated network and security management. Dhaval, let me come to you on that. What are you seeing connectivity innovations being important?
Yes, so I think as everyone has mentioned so far, the change and the distributed workflows and the sort of moving these workloads into the cloud as well would require significantly different models for connectivity as well. And the way to look at it is we would provide sort of a single digital but a secure sort of a wrapper around the entire service. So the way we are looking at it is as probably one of the largest owners and operators of submarine cable capacity when it comes to global connectivity. We are providing a single secure digital workplace environment for all large organizations. And everything else underneath, whether it is an SD-WAN based or internet based, would be our end-to-end responsibility to not only host these applications, but also provide secure and a low latency access to these applications on the cloud. Because as everyone is in your home environment, the end user experience is driven by how good or bad the local broadband is. So in these cases, we are also sort of taking that ownership that we will resolve sort of underlying issues and give a better experience for that individual wherever they are, providing as low as possible from a latency standpoint, so that the access to the applications and collaboration does not really stop over there.
Shalom, do you have any views on connectivity?
Absolutely, yes. So
I thought you might.
Yeah. So looking at connectivity, there's actually two worlds of dealing with connectivity issues. Let's call it. One is how to connect your workforce, and for that I definitely see a spike of interest in solutions like SASE services and zero trust networks, where you effectively want to publish, not to make your network available, but to make specific applications available to your workforce. So this is something where we actually see a spike in demand and in interest from our customers. But then moving to the consumers, to the end users, a point we also see more interest, not necessarily in price, but in performance, which comes in line with what Dhaval said. You know, traditionally where you buy, you know, we sell CDNs. This is our bread and butter. And we work with 15 different CDNs and mix and match and sell whatever is best for the scenario, for the customer, for the use case. And we see that a lot of customers are, they have reached a point where, you know, they could save, you know, save a few thousand of dollars every month on costs and move to something which is cheaper but less performant, but they don't.
The experience matters.
That's right. Experience matters, and it matters in all types of content, except when you are a captive audience, and even then it matters, because they really don't want, customers don't really want to, or companies don't really want to hear any customer complaints. So performance matters and experience matters, and this is the new king of the new era. Costs are already nearly at the bottom, and right now, whoever provides the best experience will become the leader.
No, interesting. Just to follow up on the connectivity issue. So 5G is beginning to be rolled out on a national basis at a variety of different rates. Christophe, do you think public 5G deployments are going to serve the needs of enterprise? You know, they're going to need fixed, dedicated speeds on the network. They're going to need predictability. Do you think 5G is important? Do you think companies will be adopting it?
Yeah, I think 5G, and it's not only a matter of the price or the speed and the way we consume, I think, mobile today. But the way we see it is we open up to new technologies such as NB-IoT, connected device, and IoT per se, that will create, I think, billions of new devices. We will provide those much needed data in order to have that hybrid experience moving forward. I'm not so sure we'll put that on athletes, but definitely on cars, and having more information about who is doing what when will be important to create that digital shadow, I think, model that everyone is looking at in that hybrid mode. That open up for questions for security, because most of the time those will be always on, and that will also shift also the way you think about your data center and the distribution. You need I think low latency capability, so at the edge you need to be able to take some decision, so it will drastically also rethink or change the way you are building your architecture, or either on a SaaS model or any type of other model.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And let me stay with you, Christophe, because you mentioned security. In fact, it's come up a number of times already. So let's open this can of worms. What do you think the security implications are for this post-COVID era? You know, we're all working at home. Security implications of that. So is remote tracking, monitoring, is that more relevant? You know, what are the privacy implications? You've mentioned IoT. What are the challenges there? Can networks cope? You know, it's a big ask of security, and obviously, you know, people are still trying to hack into to our systems as well. So, how do you think this is going to play out?
So, if we look at the positive aspect first. digitalizing the workforce and making sure that they are more tech aware or using all those tools, I think is a positive aspect. We will have, I think, less of the very basic phishing attempts or issue there because hopefully most people will be used to start Zoom meetings or to be in Teams and to share that. The move on the cloud, I think, if well done and managed, is also a positive aspect because we know, and I'm taking my cybersecurity hat there, very small SME most of the time do not have the capability to invest properly in security. And I think everybody is moving towards managed security service, which is, I think, good because it gives you also both the level of expertise and volume game that you need to have to cope with targeted attack. So that's the positive aspect. If you have done your migration, you have your cloud secure, you have your endpoint secure. So for that, you need the proper endpoint detection and response capability. And you will probably get rid of some of the security parameter from the legacy security model and refocus and invest on the right aspect. That being said, I think you will have that number of devices and connection that will multiply by 10, 100-fold. And most of the time, again, when we engage with CIOs, they do take care of their endpoint, their laptop, their servers, but they don't think about IoT-like devices. Now they have to, and they have to not only at the enterprise, but to some extent also at the household of their employee there, which makes it a different ball game. And solutions there to help to mitigate and manage your household network will have to come and will help also, I think, keeping the overall security of the system. We see more and more COVID-related attack. I think some basics one because people are using that and using the fear that you will read everything related to COVID and you will not think twice before jumping to the conclusion. That's happening now, but I think that will fade away. And again, hopefully with the awareness and the training that we can do, we can improve on that. So yes, important. It will be a different ball game. Probably the shift will come from a cloud endpoint and the connected devices, and you will probably have to rely on managed security services with professional doing only that to watch your back.
No, super. Let me come to Shalom next, again on security, but I'd love to get the views of the other panelists on security as well. I think it's such an important topic. So I might pick on you just a moment. So Shalom, let me come to you first. Security, what do you think the main implications, particularly when you're delivering content as you major?
So I think one of the main issues when you deal with security and you want to deliver content is to secure, well, you know, your content is already public. So maybe you have some implications of getting the right content to the right person. Let's put it this way. Okay, so you really need to know who is watching your content, and if you have a content which is a paid for content, then obviously you need to know that nobody's sort of stealing your content away. But I think that the more important implication is essentially to secure your origins. So you really, once you put everything, once you increase, and once you start monetizing your content, then of course somebody will always find an innovative and brilliant way to make money off your content. So I think this is a big challenge for everybody who manages content, whichever type of content it is. It could be video, it could be, you know, original content, and so on and so on. And this is something that we see in all of our content, all of our customers who are in this area, be it sports or news or whatever. So things like getting to who is your user? Are they using bots to scrape content away? Are they are they hacking other accounts and then, you know, selling them to other customers? So there is a black market, for example, for user credentials of sites like Netflix and so on. So I think that this is one of the key issues that when you expand your business model and you want to monetize more and more of your content to take into account.
Interesting. Yeah, it's not just an access issue, it's kind of an IP protection and business protection
Absolutely.
aspect. Yeah, yeah. And do you have any particular views on security? Have you beefed up your security?
Yeah, as a client, I would say I can share my view as a client rather than a security provider. I think it was kind of mentioned, but we know a number of I would say companies, and this is what I was doing before. I mean, we are moving to as a service model. I'm not even calling that cloud now because there's a misunderstanding of what cloud is for many people. There's still a number of people thinking of cloud as a server somewhere, not in their premises. But for me, the model is a service architecture. And in terms of security, security is important. It's difficult to have tons of expert security in-house and whatever. So I think people, and this is the case for us, World Athletics already, but we have moved to manage services. So we have contracted, it's security by design for all the applications we are creating, but we have also contracted with vendors managing security for us, again, as a service. So it means that we have sensors installed, we have a number of cyber barrier installed and monitored by a network operating center 24/7. So we don't rely on people being on call or whatever, or admin people trying to do security. We are relying on world expert and with the latest information in hand to make decisions in terms of how suspicious this is. So it's not just incident response. It's trying to warn us when they see something suspicious rather than being told you have been hacked. So this is something really important for us to use services as part of the design of the applications we are creating, and to use services as well as in terms of day-to-day and relying on teams of experts around following the sun for us and keeping an eye on our assets.
Interesting. Let's leave security there. So it's a extensive topic, but no, some really good insight into the application, particularly of services. So thanks, Dan. We are nearing the end of our allotted time. So let me come to each of you for a few closing remarks. And I'm going to ask you the same question, each of you the same question, which is, how confident are you that the media and entertainment industry will survive and thrive in 2021? So, Shalom, let me come to you first. Are you confident about the survival of the M&E industry? I think you might be on mute, Shalom.
Same players that we are used to see today, but somebody will be there because there is a lot of demand for it. And some of our customers saw a huge spike in demand for their content during the closure, during the quarantine time that all of the world was at a few months ago. So obviously, yes, there will be an M&E industry. I'm not sure which players will be at it, but I'm sure that somebody will survive and thrive.
Okay, very good. Anne, let me come to you next.
I think we're all humans, and I think it's difficult to live without entertainment. So media and entertainment is really here to stay, unless we all live in a cave somewhere in a few years and playing with rocks. But so I'm not worried at all about the industry as a whole. I think that some players which were fragile before might not survive because you need there's financial considerations, there's cash flow and having a sustainable model, because some of the, so some sport have discovered that they had too much reliance on this or this, and paying players millions and millions, and when there is a bump in the road, it's not working anymore. So I think it will make people think more about how sustainable is their product and model in sport. So I'm not. So I think it's we always say never waste a good crisis. So I think it will make us stronger. I think to come back on one of your opening remark, Duncan, you were saying that the COVID is leading the digital transformation, but I think it possibly is a bit simplistic to say that. And people who will survive are people who get alignment of the three C's. So is the CEO, CIO, and COVID. The COVID for me has been an accelerator of trends we were witnessing before, rather than, okay, COVID is there, so we're all going to change ways. But I've seen, the companies who are not going to survive are companies with no vision, and COVID actually can be a nail in the coffin. So it's COVID on its own is not sufficient to make companies better, but it will certainly accelerate people who had some vision of what is their future model.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Christophe, how confident are you that the media and entertainment industry will survive in 2021?
I think the media and entertainment industry, the way we know it today, will disappear, because it will keep the change and transformation and even speed up that. And I think even more, it will blur into the other industry, because we as media entertainment, we know how to master and design and produce an experience, a digital experience. And I think all the other industry that have not had that chance to have that digital transformation maybe early on will have to now tackle that. So I see a real blurring of industries. For sure, there will be still entertainment, there will still be sports, and we will still go and enjoy those events. But for all the remaining part of the quote unquote engagement that you have to do with end user, with consumer, with customers, you will have to see and watch more media related or media enabled capabilities.
Interesting. I like this idea of the blurring of industries. Dhaval, let me come to you next.
Yeah, no, I from what we've seen so far and the way the industry has reacted to the crisis and the changes that have already taken place, I'm very confident that not only media industry will survive into 2021, it is actually going to thrive. I think one clear fundamental aspect is the number of hours that people have consumed content and the habits that have now been formed is here to stay. So yes, media industry, whether it is sports, live news, entertainment, is definitely going to survive and do really well in 2021. At the same time, the landscape will be different. Not slightly different, but will be dramatically different in terms of it'll include those who have been able to adapt well to the crisis and actually look at this as an opportunity to bring forward change. And as what Anne was saying, maybe 12 months, 18 months, what would have taken that long is taking place in a matter of months. So it'll be filled with people and organizations who have adapted well. I think that is definitely to be expected. And on the other hand, we will also see significantly more enterprise value within media industry because it is an area of very high interest. I also expect a lot of capital flows to go into this sector. And it will be towards enabling new forms of content and new forms of experiences for audiences globally. Duncan.
Thank you, Dhaval. And finally, Srini.
I think to quote Game of Thrones, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. So again, as we are seeing right now, as in this conference, video is becoming the way in which all of us interact and communicate. So I think media entertainment, which is built on video, ultimately is going to thrive and grow significantly. I think what I believe that we are in very early stages in terms of what media entertainment could be from a consumer experience perspective. I think we are going towards an interlinked, interactive, and social experience with media and entertainment. And I think very, very early throws. I think the entire value chain, all the way from production to final consumption, will be reimagined over the next couple of years on how to leverage this whole new way of delivering content and new consumer experiences. And the ones that are able to really be able, that are agile and be able to leverage innovation will certainly grow and expand significantly. So I'm supremely confident that media entertainment industry will grow as an industry. I mean, not necessarily reflective of individual players there.
Very good. It's a positive note to end on that. So thank you, Srini, for that. That's it, folks. It's a whirlwind tour of the media and entertainment industry and its futures. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. My thanks to the panel for their insight and wise words. And thank you and goodbye.